All right. Another precept, Jeremiah 11 and 16.
Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 16.
Read it.
The Lord called thy name a green olive tree.
He called thy name, talking to the children of Israel, a green olive tree, read.
Fair and of goodly fruit.
And of goodly fruit.
With the noise of a great tumult, he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken.
So the Most High broke the branches of Israel after their sin in the Old Testament. But it's still showing you what we represented. Hold up, hold that. Let's go to the first verse.
Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 1.
To show you who these branches are. Read.
The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Hear ye the words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah.
The men of who?
The men of Judah.
Go ahead.
And to the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
And to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Still speaking of what? Those people who's being measured in Revelation 11. See that? So people make a mistake when they go to Revelations and try to deal with it in chronological order when it's speaking of a whole time span. And it's speaking of one people. You understand? Let's go back to Revelations.
Revelations chapter.
Back to the candlestick there.
Verse 4.
Go ahead.
These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before Ahiah of the earth.
The power of the earth, those two candlesticks who represent and fight for the elect within the earth, who's measured. Read.
Verse 5. And if any man will hurt them.
And if any man will hurt the prophets and teachers and those that follow the Most High.
Fire proceedeth out of their mouth.
Now this is not talking about fire coming out of the prophet's mouth. Now the angels, the two candlesticks in the heaven, are now bringing down fire on the enemies of Israel, like what happened during the time of Elijah. Like when Pharaoh was chasing us into the near the Red Sea, a pillar of fire came down and protected Israel. So this is showing you the heavenly function working with the elect within the earth. Read.
And devoureth their enemies.
Go ahead.
And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. Verse 6. These have power to shut heaven.
These have power to shut heaven. You can pray. It be raining. The Most High will. You pray, and the clouds will stop. The sun come out. Why? Because these same functions operate within the heavenly realm. Hear your prayer and stop the rain. All right. Read.
That it rain not in the day of their prophecy.
That it rain not in the day of their prophecy. So this is Israel working in the earth, bringing forth prophecy, and the angels on the heavenly realm executing their prayer, executing their wishes. All right? Moses was not doing those things by himself. All those miracles Moses did was executed from the heavenly realm and made itself present within the earthy realm. Christ told Peter, anything you bound on earth shall be bound in heaven. Anything you loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. So whatever you bring forth in this earth, the angels will do. That's what this means. It's not talking about some two guys at end time prophecy coming out with fire in their mouth and all that. That's a total distraction of prophecy. So that you'll be looking for something that will never happen. This is not speaking of Elijah and Moses coming back into Jerusalem prophesying like you see on some of these Left Behind movies. That's not going to happen. Okay? This is only speaking of, and let me bring this around, the teachers of the Most High that's following Christ within the earth, which are the witnesses who are numbered by the angels. This is speaking of them who have certain powers by praying into heaven, and those two candlesticks before the throne executing and confirming their prophecy. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay? And some people might ask, well, why we don't see a lot of this today? Well, it's hard to see it if you're not being told or taught about the true God of Israel? How can you do it if you can't link into the Most High? That's another reason we get bringing forth the Most High's name and the truth according to the Bible. How can you link into this power if you don't know the God who controls all power? That's why they set up religion to separate us from that, because no weapon that's formed against us shall prosper if we link into that power. They know this. So they would never teach you how to link into the heavenly arsenal. Okay? Finish reading Revelations here.
And have power over waters to turn them to blood.
And that's how Moses was able to do what he did. Okay? Read.
And to smite the earth with all plagues, as often as they will.
That's what Moses did. And now we see what was going on with Moses in the earthly realm and what was being executed in the heavenly realm every time Moses brought forth a plague. The Most High would tell them, listen, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go, or this plague is coming. The Pharaoh would harden his heart and go against God's people and not let us go, didn't want to let us go. And then those two angels that are operating before the Most High would materialize into the earthly realm and bring it forth and make the plagues come forth. That's how it was executed. Okay? So, of course, if they see anyone trying to link into the Most High, the true God, they're looking to exterminate just based on that alone, because there's no technology they have in this earth that could fight against the heavenly technology. So it's a threat to their existence. Finish reading.
Verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony.
And when they shall have finished their testimony, to show you throughout the years, when the Most High would wake up prophets and teachers and those who would follow Christ throughout all societies during this 42-month period in which the Gentiles are ruling. Read.
The beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit.
And we know the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit is Satan, because he will be bound 1,000 years upon Christ's return, and he will be loosed after the 1,000 years. So Satan is speaking of. Read.
The beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them.
Shall make war against them. So every time one of the prophets or teachers of our people wake up and stand for justice, Satan puts a target on them to be destroyed. He targets them through government to kill and destroy them. This is what it's speaking of. So this thing didn't just start here. It's through all society since Christ was crucified. Satan would target those who would have this understanding. Read.
And shall overcome them and kill them.
And see, our people were killed. These are assassinations. Ever since the time they killed Christ. Assassinations. They have done this to the disciples. They have done this to King James. Do you know they killed King James? Who was going against the Roman Empire? Yeah, they killed him. It was the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, throughout all these periods, who have been looking at God's people who was awakening through each society, through each empire, through that 42 months it's speaking of in Revelations. Read on.
Verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city.
Here's the key point.
Which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
And their dead bodies shall lie in where?
That great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
So their dead bodies shall lie in that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. So this is not physical Sodom. This is not physical Egypt. This is speaking of the place we call America, and I can prove it. Sodom was known for what? Homosexuality. Promoting man on man, woman with woman, And Egypt is a place in which the children of Israel serve captivity. Do that sound like America to you? Promoting, giving homosexual rights? And it's the same place where God's people served who came over on slave ships? Let's see. Hold that and get Deuteronomy 28 and 68. I'm dealing with the spiritual Egypt, and then we're going into modern Egypt with what's going on there with the Muslim Brotherhood and them setting up their regime over in Egypt. I'm going into it. But first we must speak about spiritual Egypt, because spiritual Egypt is controlling the physical Egypt today. The pyramid on your dollar bill, the New World Order. Who's controlling Egypt? Who's controlling the Arab Spring? Who's controlling God's people and destroying God's people? The powers that set up America. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68 to show you what it means when it says spiritual Egypt. Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68.
This is a curse that would come on the children of Israel. Come on, light. Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So the Most High told his people, if you did not follow me after giving you the law, statutes, and commandments, if you start following these Gentiles, you will go into Egypt, which means bondage, a second time. With what?
With ships.
With ships. Chinese people didn't go into cargo slave ships. White people did not go into cargo slave ships. Arabs did not go into cargo slave ships. So who went into bondage again by the means of ships? These are they who the angels are measuring for the temple. These are they who will rise under Christ, and the power is Noah. They shall go into Egypt again with what?
With ships.
With ships, read.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
By the way whereof I speak unto thee, read.
Thou shalt see it no more again.
And this is your last captivity. You served Egypt before. If you didn't follow me and follow these commandments, I will send you into Egypt again with ships this time. It's bondage by ships. Now, mind you, the name Egypt was a term that was put on the land Mizraim by Greeks. The original landmass was called Matazarium or Mizraim. So they named Egypt based on the constructs that was built by what? Slavery. Egypt actually breaks down into a word, house of bondage. Hold up and get Exodus 13 and 3.
Exodus chapter 13, verse 3.
Read.
And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt.
Out of Egypt.
Out of the house of bondage.
Out of the house of bondage. You see that? That's crystal clear. The dead bodies shall be in that city that spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. Sodom was destroyed by fire when angels of the Lord was sent to warn Lot. And those that were dealing with sodomite spirits wanted to sexually assault those angels. Inordinate sexual behavior was prominent within Sodom against the true reason for reprocreation. It was against the reprocreation process of the Most High. Men with men, women with women. And the Most High reigned on Sodom. Now, only certain lands are telling people it's okay, and teaching people in school, teaching children in school, it's okay for men to marry men and women to marry women. And pushing it through legislation. It's spiritually Sodom based on the legislation which upholds homosexuality. Spiritually called Sodom and what?
And Egypt.
And Egypt. We know that's America because we went into cargo slave ships in America. And now America is giving rights to sodomites. Finish reading.
Back to Deuteronomy.
No, let's go back.